if, let's say, Aunt Susie has brought 5 gifts for Amanda, maybe you're only going to put 2 under the tree and maybe save the other 3 for another time. Mm. And so you can kind of limit the amount that goes under the tree.
Welcome to Transforming the Toddler Years, a Core 4 parenting podcast blending soul and science-based strategies to empower pandemic moms like you, raising kindergarten-ready kids. I'm Cara Tyrrell, your host, a lifetime lover of littles, girl mom, early childhood educator, and conscious parenting coach who truly believes that how we connect and collaborate with our kids in the first 5 years is how we raise world-ready kids who will change this world. Does your kid have too much stuff? Do you have too much stuff? Does it just feel like the clutter is everywhere and it's a little overwhelming? Today's guest, Lisa Garcia, is here to talk about the less is more concept and how it literally changes the entire experience for your kids and for yourself. And it's a perfect time with Christmas right around the corner to arm yourself with proactive strategies for how to handle the influx of stuff that's coming. Lisa is a registered nurse with over 15 years of home care experience and leadership. She holds bachelor's degrees in nursing, sociology, and early childhood education. This conversation is so much more than just how to get rid of some stuff. She really tags into the heart and the soul of the character that we want to be for our kids and the character of the kids we want to grow, and doing that through having less stuff around us. Enjoy this episode, enjoy your holiday, and let's make some cool memories with less stuff. Lisa, I'm so glad that you're here today to talk about the less is more principle, just as human beings, but specifically with the holidays happening and all the gift giving happening in our family units. Thank you for being here, taking some time to share your wisdom.
Thank you, Cara, for having me. I'm very excited to be here and talk about the less is more philosophy, specifically as it pertains to children. So thank you.
Yeah, so I have to share that I spent a lot of time as a nanny. I spent even more than that as a mom, and the stuff just starts to pile up without us realizing it, without it being a cognitive thing that we're intentionally choosing. Mm-hmm. You raised 2 kids as a single mom. Mm-hmm. Did the same thing happen for you when they were little?
It did to an extent. I have a very large family. All of my cousins and I all raised our children together. And so when Christmas time came, the gifts would be piled high, darn near to the ceiling. Not to mention all of the hand-me-downs that would happen amongst us. So it did happen to an extent. And my kids' birthdays happened to be in the spring and summer. So there'd be a big onslaught of gift giving at that point in the year. And then about like 6 to 8 months later with Christmas that we celebrate. So very early on, I started to see how things accumulate very quickly.
And you have a really cool background. You have bachelor degrees in nursing, but also in early childhood. Mm-hmm. And so both of these are very service-oriented spaces. Mm-hmm. And how did that make you stop and think and just say, hey, I think there's probably a different way to do this. I wonder if we can be a bit more minimalistic and have better outcomes, not just for kids, but you were seeing it in that caregiving space too.
So I had my first degree out of college was in sociology and education. And I started out as an elementary school and preschool teacher. Later on, when my kids were toddlers, I started a group family daycare. So I have a pretty extensive background in that age space. And one of the things I learned early on as an early childhood educator, one, it's about process, not product, right? Yes. A lot of our pre-K families have those art projects like all over the place. And as moms, we feel horrible getting rid of one. But I learned early on in my education that it's about the experience the child had in creating versus the actual thing. I also learned a lot about just the different sensory experiences that children have and the downsides to having too much, including what we call sensory overload. Just like too much to look at, too much to hear, making it difficult for a lot of our kids to focus, to stay on task, and to really enjoy whatever particular process they're engaged in.
Oh, I echo that. Amen to all of that. Yes, as an educator, I totally feel that.
Mm-hmm.
So when a kiddo walks into a classroom or a playroom that just has too much stuff and too many colors and too many choices and just all the too manys, what's actually happening for them? What's the barrier that prevents them from accessing fun and creativity?
I think there's just a lot of neurological activity that's going on that a lot of our kids just have a hard time negotiating. It's like if you've ever walked a puppy, I hate to relate our kids to dogs, but a lot of us have. I'm a dog mom, so my dog is my baby. They're my new babies, but they're easily distracted, right? There's like a cat here and a squirrel there and a flying leaf and a flying plastic bag. And the dog just doesn't know where to put its attention. And I think something similar happens with a lot of our children. Not all, obviously. Some kids walk into a playroom and they instantly gravitate to the building materials or the drama area or the music area. And that's great. But that's not the case for all our kids. And I think we're living in a world now that's hypersensory overload. Our kids are exposed to tech and media, which didn't exist 20 years ago. And so their brains are constantly being bombarded. And I think it makes it difficult for them to settle. You know, they don't have the cognitive skills to be able to say, let me turn this off and make a different decision.
They don't.
A lot of us don't have those cognitive skills, let alone the little ones.
Exactly. And, you know, as parents, especially the parents that listen to this show, they're really excited to be a support system for their children's overall growth. Mm-hmm. One of the things we talk about here a lot that I know you can relate to is that knowing your ABCs, 1, 2, 3's colors and numbers is only one fraction of the readiness skills that our kids need in order to go to school and be successful. Mm-hmm. And so we want to inspire creativity, creative thinking, the cognitive problem-solving processes. How many toys for a really little person? I mean, we're talking like 2, 3 years old. How many toys should they have around them so that they have the space to make those choices?
That's a really tough question to answer. You know, it depends on a lot of different factors. Has that toddler shown interest in a particular type of toy? What type of space is available to that toddler? So we have parents living in studio apartments. We have parents living in 5-bedroom homes where there's a whole separate playroom. So we have to take that into consideration also. So it's not really, I don't think, a hard number, but where are you seeing as mom or dad they're gravitating towards, and how much space do we have, physical space, do we have to allow them to navigate? Because our toddlers are walking by and large, and they need to be able to get from, you know, one area to another without too much being in the way. You know, as a mom and as an early childhood educator, I always saw that I saw success when I definitely limited the amount of stuff that my kids were exposed to, and I paid very keen attention to the toys that they could engage in for long periods of time, or the activities that they engaged in long periods of time. That's when you know they're like in the zone, you know, and really doing their thing. And once you as mom or dad, mom has figured that out, then you're going to let that toy or the toys in that family of playing live with your little one, you know, for as long as you see that engagement is happening. You know, maybe pull some other stuff out of the way that they're not looking at. There's something that they look at and they go, nah, get it out of there and let them focus on, you know, where they're being inspired.
Oh, I love this answer so much because you're observing.
Right.
You're sitting back and you're watching how your child engages with the toys, the choices that they're making, the creative play that they're letting evolve, how they engage and talk to the little toys or make them talk. It's just so beautiful, this observation process. All right, so let's shift a little bit to talk about all the stuff that's about to show up in these homes.
Yeah.
Because say someone actually has a pretty manageable play space in that bedroom or in that corner. More is not better. So just continually putting more there is going to add the overwhelm, but a lot is about to show up. So what do you recommend to mitigate this influx of stuff that's about to come in and not overwhelm our kids?
So as parents, we're in charge of what happens in our house. We're in charge of who and what comes in on every level. And so if, let's say, Aunt Susie has brought 5 gifts for Amanda, maybe you're only going to put 2 under the tree and maybe save the other 3 for another time. And so you can kind of limit the amount that goes under the tree. The other thing that I strongly recommend, I believe this very deeply, and this is the approach that I took as a mom with my children. I strongly believe in experiences over things.
Yes.
Of course, our little ones, many of them love the experience, and we do too, of ripping off the wrapping paper and opening the gift. But what could be inside that box could be a gift card to a museum or to a play space or to, like a Chuck E. Cheese type of space or, any kind of fun, creative zone. And the kid will open it and be like, what is this? You as mom will know, okay, this will be our activity for the weekend. And then you'll quickly pass them on something else that they can touch and feel. But to answer your question, telling people, I'd love to give my kid some experiences, in addition to some toys, of course. And that will kind of keep all those boxes out of the way.
Yes, I'm over here doing a little happy dance if you could see me. I have whole podcast episodes that I've recorded on this principle, giving experiences over things.
Over things, yeah.
I go to birthday parties for the littles in my life, and I don't bring a present.
Yeah.
I do bring a homemade card that has a picture of me and the kiddo together.
Right.
And then maybe I printed out like where we're going to go.
Right.
The Butterfly Museum. We're going to go and have that experience together.
Exactly.
So yeah, I totally subscribe to this. I will say that I have tried to put together lists of activities and experiences and give them to the family gift givers, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, and say, you can choose from any of these things. It would be just the best if you went and had this experience with the kiddo. Some of them were like, I love it. This is brilliant. Let's do it. And others were just, they're so preconditioned that it's all about, that's how they show love. So let me ask you this then, because you've clearly had experience with this. For the family members in our lives who are just going to pile it on, and then we are going to say, okay, 7 of these are going in the closet until the next giving opportunity. And 2, we might actually encourage our child to give away to the next toy drive.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you have those conversations with your family members?
That's such a tough one.
Yeah.
It's such a tough one. We don't want to offend our family members. We don't want our families to think that we're ungrateful, but at the end of the day, our child's well-being and our well-being are the priority. And, if you've tactfully and very graciously explained to your family member, this is really what I would prefer, for my little guy or my little girl, and they're still doing what it is that they want to do, unfortunately, they're not hearing you. And you can't make people hear you. You know what I mean? So we kind of have to release any guilt. I like to say guilt is a very useless emotion. Kind of release the guilt and stick to your guns, stick to your boundaries, because at the end of the day, it's your child, it's your sanity. They're not there to clean up all those Legos and all those Polly Pocket pieces and all the Roblox and all the stuff that ends up all over the floor. They're not stepping on those Legos. They just know that they're giving something fun. And just, express your gratitude, but we can't control other people's thoughts, behaviors, and actions. We just have to accept that.
I feel such a synergy to you, and I am so glad that you are here on this show.
Oh, thank you.
There's a deep why that goes into being a really conscious, intentional parent. And if you know yours, if you're in touch with it, it's so much easier to try to let go of that guilt and to have these conversations with people who love you and you love them back. And if, a lot of families I work with, one of their deep whys right now is protecting and saving our planet. And so plastic toys just feel awful to them. I love your eye roll. Exactly. That's perfect. I had to make that audible for everyone. They would really prefer less and higher quality that are going to last a long period of time. And so I'm curious if you have any companies that you like that are producing things like that.
Oh gosh, I really wish I could answer the question. I don't, and I'm really glad you asked that question, because I'm actually going to source that so that I can give out those recommendations.
Yay. And once when you put it together, share it with me, and
I
I'll
absolutely
share
will.
it with,
I absolutely will. Again, I always revert back to, experiences over things, not buying things in, real like deep discount stores. Those things tend to be really at the bottom of the barrel in terms of quality, lots of toxic chemicals in those products. So like you said, better quality, better to spend a little bit more on a quality product that would be potentially less toxic to your child and ultimately to the environment. But yeah, I'm just going to go back to,
I love this. So if we blend everything we've talked about so far, if you have family members who are just like, it's Thanksgiving already, where's the list?
Yeah.
That was my parents. They were like, we're getting ready over here. Where's the list of the year? And that you're going to talk to them about trying to infuse some experiences, and you're going to talk to them about buying less this year. Then maybe a great compromise is, here are some higher quality toys that cost a little more, but we know that they're going to grow with our child. Right. We had a gift like that when the girls were young. That was a wooden marble run. It was the most complicated thing I had ever experienced, because it's not my strong skill, the engineering and mechanics and putting. But they did their 4-year-old best at it. And at 5, they could do even more. And at 6, they were making these cool runs. And at 7, they had mastered it. So it grew with them over the years.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. Another idea from a cost-saving perspective is, if something is a little bit more costly, maybe a couple of family members can put it in together. So maybe this gift is from Aunt Shelley and Uncle Max and Aunt Jenny, and they all gave you this wonderful gift. So give them all a big thank you.
There's that gratitude for many.
For many, yeah.
Another thing that, and I'm so guilty of this, better now because they're adults, but when they were little, I'd get all excited about what I thought they were ready for. The gift would be given, and then for 6 months or so, like you said, it wasn't really engaged with. And then all of a sudden they made this developmental leap and they were like, oh, I'm ready for it now. So using this strategy that you've taught us, maybe, moms and dads, you can be watching to see what you thought they were ready for, but they're just not quite there, and put those away until later. So I really want you to tackle this idea of toy swapping, because it's a very well-known strategy. So tell us your methodology for toy swapping. How often do you do it?
Yeah, this is something that I embraced very early with my children. As I started to see the bedrooms getting overcrowded, I said, oh no, this isn't going to happen. So the timeline I recommend is actually seasonally because, we can't often predict when those leaps and bounds are going to take place. Sometimes our children stay in a particular phase, a little longer than what the guidelines suggest, sometimes, less time. But as the seasons change, I live in a 4-season time zone, so it's pretty easy for me, but we've all got a calendar. Every 3 months, go through the room. And again, with that mindfulness of what were they really into? Because what they're really into, they're going to keep. And the stuff they haven't really looked at, that's been sitting there for 3 months since Christmas or 6 months since their birthday, in great shape, maybe just weren't ready for it. Just maybe that interest hasn't peaked yet. Let's put that away. Let's pick a closet, the attic, a crawl space, spot in the basement, in the garage. Keep it nice and safe and secure. Then when you do your next round 3 months later, again, assess where they're at, assess where their interests are. You're going to be removing some stuff, and then you're going to reintroduce the new stuff. And it's stuff that they'd seen before, but I guarantee you, 3 and 4 months later, it's like they're seeing it for the first time. And that excitement is renewed. And maybe they weren't interested in it, in March, but now it's June or July, and they're like, oh, yeah, I want to try this puzzle.
Yeah, it's kind of magical.
It really is. I remember the first time I experienced it, I was like, I don't have to go shopping. Mm-hmm. I don't have to buy them anything. I'm just going to swap out what they have every couple of months. And it's like a fun experience for them.
Yeah. It's crazy how the novelty is just back.
Yeah. Yeah. And you didn't have to leave the house. You didn't have to spend any money. And you didn't have to contribute to overloading the environment with more stuff.
I'm going to get you back to this amazing conversation. But before I do, I wanted to ask you a question. Have you been part of the Core 4 parenting world for a while? It's about a year that we've been doing this podcast. Have you wanted to take the Transforming the Toddler Years class, but the season never worked for you or the timing never worked for you? Exciting news. I am launching my first ever evening session of the Transforming the Toddler Years course. We start January 9th. It is at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it's in the evenings where you can create time to learn and grow with your partner and your children. I would love to see you in the course. If you've been waiting for the right time, the right season, the new year is a great time to make changes in the way that you see your kids, feel your kids, hear your kids, and collaborate with them to make big, beautiful change inside your home. Hop on a call with me, use the link in the show notes, see if we're a good fit to work together. And I would love to have you in the winter cohort of the course. So here at Core 4 Parenting, collaborative parenting is what we talk about. It's what I teach. And, it's this idea of teaming up with your children to make choices together, to solve problems together, and to do hard things together. So I'm curious what your take on including the kiddos in these decision-making processes about which toys or which objects are going to be removed in this season. That's how I would approach it, but it's a lot of work if you're concerned that your kids just want to keep everything. So what's your take on that?
I think it's critical that the child be involved, no matter the age. As long as the child is verbal or they're really able to express themselves, I think it's critical that they be involved. Number one, I think if we just start removing things without their involvement, it could create trust issues between the child and the parent. And that's the last thing we want as parents. We want our children to trust us at all times. And it's also an opportunity to teach our children about gratitude and about empathy, particularly as it relates to teaching children how kind and thoughtful and generous it is to give to others.
Yes.
Right. So that enters into that quarterly sweep that we were talking about a moment ago. While we're going through the process, we're not only cycling toys out, but it's also an opportunity to say, hey, a lot of kids, their mom and dad can't give them a lot of toys like you have. So how about we take some toys and we give them to other kids who don't have toys? And they may not get it at first, but once it becomes part of the process, then they will. And it'll make them feel good to know that they're doing a kind thing. And ultimately, as parents, what do we want? We want to cultivate good character in all of our children. And so that time, our toy swapping time, is really a great opportunity to do that. And so that's where you're having conversation. You know, you can be teaching your children on a level that's appropriate for their age, you know, about, you know, things that are going on in society. And not everybody is as fortunate as, you know, we may be. And it's important for us to be kind and to be generous, and begins the teachings of empathy for others. When my children were young, you talked about a why, you know, in the context of, you know, environmental consciousness. But a big why for me as a parent was that I didn't want my children to be bratty. I'd seen a lot of brattiness. I'd seen a lot of kids walking out of school and like throwing their backpacks at their moms, like, or the nanny, you know, like, that's not very nice. I really wanted my children to grow up in a spirit of gratitude and respect. And that's another reason why I limited the amount that came in, because I wanted them to be grateful for what they had. They wanted for nothing, I assure you. But I wanted them to be grateful for what they had. I didn't want it to be like, oh, I have $20, you know, whatever. It's like, I have this doll. I love this doll. I'm going to take good care of her. I'm going to be kind to her. I'm not going to destroy her because I know mom will just get me 5 more. And it worked.
Yes.
It worked. Anything I brought them, they would be grateful. They'd say, oh, thank you, mom. I like this. And they would care for it. And it translated into other aspects of their development growing up. I'm proud to say they're very kind and thoughtful people today.
I love to hear that. I feel the same about my girls. They're 18 and 20. And, you know, once you start to hear what people have to say about your children after they leave your home is when you know, we did our work when they were little.
That's right.
So we just wrapped here at Core 4, we just wrapped a 12 Days of Christmas Toddler Tips Challenge. It was so much fun, Lisa.
Wow.
I put on a little Santa hat and I would sing a verse from the song. It was great. And one of the things that I made sure to highlight was that a conversation when a gift is received needs to happen. Thank you isn't enough, right? Thank you for the fill in the blank. I love it so much because, like, let's add some context to it, because being a gracious receiver is the first step to being a really conscious and intentional gift giver. And so I love how these things kind of play off each other, that this empathy and this compassion. One of the things that I wanted to ask you was about regifting. When my girls were little, as the holidays were approaching, we'd have all these conversations that you're talking about. They knew that it was their job to go into their rooms, and we would pick a number, you know, and choose 3 or 4 things that they were going to donate to the local thrift store that could then turn into somebody else's new toy. And so one of my kids particularly got super into this regifting. She loved it. And so one Christmas Eve, we are at my parents' house and there's one present left, and it's from Caroline to my dad. She called him her papa. And, you know, it's the last present. It's so exciting. And he opens it and it's this big box, and in it is one Staples catalog. And she is lit up like the Christmas tree. Aww. Don't you love it, Papa? I thought of you when I saw it because it had this thing that she had seen. And we were all dying laughing. It was the best gift of Christmas. And she had just grabbed it from around the house and thrown it in a box and wrapped it.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. And she was really thinking about her grandfather when she gave it to him.
Yes.
A lot of intentionality there.
Yeah. So should we rethink regifting? Is it not the negative thing that we think it is?
No. Regifting, thrifting, secondhand, there's nothing wrong with it. Not only is there nothing wrong with it, we know the planet needs it. There are a lot of us on the planet. We know our carbon footprint is out of control. And the volume of things, I had a thought the other day when I was walking my dog. I said, if no one bought a stitch of clothing again, how much clothes, and we can apply this to toys, exists on the earth that there's enough to continue circulating for our use? And, I'm not a scientist, but I feel like we could go several years without running out of stuff.
Mm.
And so I think that regifting, secondhand shopping, thrifting should become a mainstay for a lot of us. Let's take really good care of our things. Let's teach our kids to take really good care of their things so that they can remain in use, if not by us, by other children, by other people.
Yeah.
And that just ties in so many of the important concepts that we're talking about.
Absolutely. So my kiddo who now lives on her own, of course, the first time you live alone, right? Your budget is like, whoa, okay. I didn't realize all of these things that cost money that I never had to pay for on my own. So I highly encouraged her to join the local Buy Nothing group. And her mind went, whoa. And they got a couch. And she's like, I got a couch. I'm like, I know, because that couch existed and it lived its life for that family, but they were moving and now it can be a tool that you can use. So yeah, if anyone who's listening has never heard of Buy Nothing, look it up, find your local chapter and start giving away all the things that still have life in them that you have no use for, and start asking for the things that you need, and other people will return that to you.
Cara, I am such a huge advocate of Buy Nothing. And for your listeners, you can Google buynothing.org to learn about, the whole Buy Nothing philosophy. If your community doesn't have a Buy Nothing group, you can start one. It's pretty simple. The groups pretty much run themselves. Admins really only have to jump in if people are misbehaving. But for the most part, people in these groups are so grateful that, 99.9% of members are wonderful. It's a great way of building community. And like we're talking about, a great way to keep things in circulation. You save money, you save time, you get to know your neighbors. Oh gosh, I just love Buy Nothing. I feel like every neighborhood should have a Buy Nothing group. I've actually, on a personal note, in the process of redecorating my living room. I've been in my home for over 20 years and it's time for like a whole new look. And I am committed to getting everything from Buy Nothing.
Whoa.
Yes, I've got my coffee table. And speaking of couch, I found my couch. Yeah, true story.
I love this.
Yeah.
I love this. A commitment.
I've made a commitment.
Right?
I want nothing to come from the store. There's good stuff out there. I just have to be patient. And the things that fit, our style will show up, and they're showing up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All the character traits that you are throwing out in this episode, right? The empathy, the generosity, the gratitude, the patience. We are a consumer-driven culture. And so we don't have the patience to wait for the next thing, for it to drop in price, for it to show up in our life organically. Teaching our kids that patience, that is so crucial. Yeah. And then just this commitment that you've said, I have a project and my guidelines for this project are, and that you will honor them. If we could frame gift giving and receiving, if we could frame redoing the kids' bedrooms like that for them. And even if it was a hybrid model, right? Okay, right. Our budget is $500, but we're not spending any more money than that. Right. Whatever else we want to do, we will find a way to source it differently.
That's right. And the money that we're saving is money that can go towards experiences like travel, let's say. How valuable is it for us to be able to take our children out of the country and experience other cultures and other ways of life, to see how, how privileged we are here in the United States. And oddly enough, Americans really don't travel all that much. Between, our commitments to work, it's not that we don't have PTO. A lot of us just don't take it because we're, so focused on work and what we have to do in the house. But we could, travel some more, save up money and do that sort of thing. Those types of experiences are also going to enrich our children's lives, their development, their character, their worldviews, and, saving money by using systems like Buy Nothing are one way to get there.
Oh, Lisa, I have so enjoyed this conversation. I feel like the depth of it is far reaching beyond Christmases, birthdays, and just general gift giving opportunities. We're raising a generation of kids in a world that has never existed. Right? Post-pandemic parenting is a whole new world. And so with that comes a huge opportunity to see things differently, to choose differently, to do things differently. And so I just know people are going to feel really inspired by this episode to start making some shifts. Now, you do help with decluttering and organizing on larger scales, not just children's stuff.
Right.
So share with people where they can find you online if they want to have a longer conversation with you about creating those safe spaces for themselves as adults.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. So the name of my company is Minimalism, NYC. So a play on the word minimal, obviously. My name, Lisa, and I am based in New York City, although I do travel. So minimalismnyc.com is where you'll see my website. Same on Instagram. I've got a Facebook group where, we just share tips, organizational tips, but more so my goal in the Facebook group is to change the way people think about things and the role that things play in their lives. Because until we change the way we think, our behavior isn't going to change significantly. And so that's what I focus on in our Facebook group. And you can send me an email at minimalismnyc@gmail.com. And if you go to my website, there's a button you can click if you want to schedule a call. Most people who schedule calls with me are looking to hire someone to provide service, but I'm also happy to take a 15-minute call with someone who just needs to kind of, bounce off some ideas, share some thoughts, maybe get a little inspiration. Those are all the ways that you can reach me.
That's amazing. That's amazing. All right. So I want to wrap up with one final question. This is a biggie for me. This conversation happened a lot in our home. It happened when we went to stores. It happened premeditated when we knew gift giving was coming. The idea of need versus want. And instilling an understanding in our kids that there are truly things in the world that we need. They're non-negotiable. And there are truly things in the world that we want, and they're frivolous and they're just fun. And then it gets a little foggy in the middle sometimes, is which one is it? So what have you done as far as the thinking shift around needing versus wanting something? And how did you talk to your kids about that?
So I made it very clear to my little ones very early on that we have everything we need. We have a home, we have food, we have water, shelter, we have clothing, we have access to healthcare and education, and they have two parents who love them and will always care for and protect them. So I constantly, because it would be, I want. Sorry, I need. You have everything. And I was very intentional. You have everything you need. Tiffany, you have everything you need. Taylor, you have everything you need. It's okay to want something. And if you have a list of 5 things you want, maybe we'll get 1. Maybe we'll get 2. Sometimes I would set incentives to get those wants, whether it be, something to be done around the house or some improvement to be seen, in academics, or trying something that they were afraid to try as an incentive. Then, you're gonna get that want. But that's really where I personally drew the distinction. I actually didn't operate much in that middle area, that gray area that you were describing. I really wanted it to be clear to them that their needs were met and they were met well. And everything else is, we were fortunate to have.
And that's why I asked the question, because every time I do, I get a different response, which is so valuable, because moms and dads, you are the architect of your child's childhood.
That's right.
You are designing this environment, this nurture space that they live inside.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get to do it. Right. Your terms and intentionally. So if you want to go black and white in Lisa's way, by all means, please do. Mm-hmm. If you want to have more conversations about giving your kids more choice on that middle ground, let's talk about it. Mm-hmm. But this is your journey. And as a podcast host who brings in expert guests, our job is just here to support you into making your best choices. Well, Lisa, thank you so much. This has been really an enlightening episode. I am honored to be able to share it during the holiday season where it's going to do the most good. And I cannot wait to hear the ratings and the reviews and all the people who are going to take something really positive away from this.
Thank you. It's been wonderful being on your podcast. I wish you continued success. You're really providing something very, very valuable to the parents out there. I wish something like this existed when I was a parent.
Oh man, I wouldn't have to be in business if I got a penny every time I heard that, right? So I would still do it. This is about the impact. Yeah. So for all of you out there, have a fantastic Christmas, a wrap up to Hanukkah, if that is what you celebrate, and stay mindful and proactive until our next episode of Transforming the Toddler Years.